Hi, I'm here today to talk about the Wendy Williams uh, documentary. I know many of you saw it over the weekend. It was on Saturday and Sunday. It was very eye-opening. A lot of things were not surprising because I had seen the previous two documentaries, and from what my understanding is, again, everything I say in this video is alleged, in my opinion, fair use for training, entertainment, research purposes only, protected by the copyright laws. But this was an agreement that she signed back in 2019 to do a 3-document series. So this was a third of that installment. So there was a contractual agreement that she had to do a third documentary, and apparently this was taped according to what was revealed in the 2022 time period. So that's been, what, a year and a half ago, I think, July, August 2022. So we're in 2024 now, so it's still been a while. But some takeaways for me, and I wanted to discuss this. I had a previous video on the Wendy Williams last week when it was, there was talk that the conservatorship, the guardianship, was trying to block the release of this documentary, but apparently they weren't able to succeed, so it did move forward. And I want to talk about the good things first. It's easy to focus on the bad things, but the good things, I loved some of the pictures that they included. We see Wendy getting into the radio, getting into television. Some wonderful pictures with her family. I absolutely love family pictures. They tell the story of our lives. My mother was a big picture person, so I grew up with a lot of pictures, a lot of albums, a lot of, family event recordings that we could always, share together when we got back together on special events. Reliving history. My mother used to always say, pictures are history. So some of those wonderful pictures of her family and good times. So I want to start with that. So I love, especially when little Kev was a little baby and they're sitting on the couch and Wendy was all big smiles. There was another picture when she was in the kitchen with little Kev when he was probably a few months old. And then the picture of the whole family. There was a big, family dinner, and little Kev was to the left. He had, dreads at that time. As I remember, the little people's table. Many of you have had family gatherings. The adults sit at the big table that has all the fine china, and then the little people, us kids, we were, relegated to the little table. So that's what I thought when I saw that picture. I think it was Kevin, his niece, Alex, his cousin, I'm sorry, Wendy's niece, Alex, has been doing all the interviews. She was at that table. I think maybe her brother and maybe other family, but I remember Kevin, he was at the corner of it. But anyway, so those are some, good family memories for me. So fast forward, with every family, there are issues, some, greater than others, their individual issues. So again, pictures, the family, the pictures of, her parents and the siblings, that looks like they were on vacation. The kids were standing behind the parents who were seated. Those are some great pictures. So again, that's history. We can't erase that. Despite what's happening now in Wendy's life, she had a great family history. So I want to start with that. So fast forward to where we are now, according to this documentary. Many of us who have followed Wendy since she first came onto television, the Wendy Williams show, I was an avid, I had it on DVR back in those days before, all these other, YouTube was very popular, but, we could do the DVR, we get the VHS recordings and come home after work and watch the show, or watch it online, whatever your method of watching the show. But I always loved to see the hot topics of, what Hollywood was doing. Let's face it, we all live vicariously through the superstar celebrities. I think now we're realizing our little boring, common, regular, smegular lives aren't so bad now that we see what's going on in the lives of our celebrities that's reported thanks to social media. So, at any rate, on a more serious note, some of the things that I'll say will come from a professional perspective, also a family perspective, also a caregiver perspective, also just a human perspective. Addiction. Many of you may or may not have dealt with a close family member that's dealt with addiction. It can be very tricky. Depends on what the addiction is, particularly if it deals with alcohol and substance abuse. It's a very long road. Many times these addictions started out many years prior to getting to the point that it becomes dangerous to the health of the family member or members. So in some cases, close family members have dealt with it for many, 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 many years. So, and it's not a new issue. Many people are functional. Let's just use Wendy in the case of an alcoholic. She was a functional alcoholic. She could go to work every day, bring home the bacon, as they say, and still function. Those that were closest to her realized there were problems many years ago. I've seen reports, I've seen interviews. As many of you know, Norman and Suzanne were her two right-hand people on the show for, I guess from the beginning. And you could tell many years ago that she was struggling. Norman would have to finish her sentences. He would have to tell her the names of people because she'd, like, in mid-sentence forget who she was talking about. She would forget the person that was, being pictured right behind her when she was in the big purple chair. So, I mean, we all saw that, externally, but internally, I'm sure there were other signs. So she was good at masking her addiction. What we saw in the documentary, how truly bad it was from the day to day. And that's really hard to see up close. A family member that you love struggle to the point that it affects your mental, it affects your physical health, it affects all parts of your life. Many times it leads to depression. Many times it leads to isolation because you don't want the people closest to you, or that should be the closest to you, you don't want them to see how your life is because of the addiction. You want to isolate so that you can drink, you can do whatever the other abuses are without accountability, without someone telling you not to do it. What I saw in this documentary, her family did not allow her to drink around them, which I totally agree. Understand that totally firsthand. You don't want to see the destruction of your family member. That's point blank period. And that's where her son, no drinking policy. A couple of times, Will, her manager, and we'll talk about him in a minute, anytime she was caught, she was always trying to elude the fact that he knew she was drinking. The hidden bottle behind the closet or cabinet or wherever he found that bottle that he was asking her, did she drink that all day? Also, when she was out to lunch with the publicist, and she had just ordered a drink, and she was very cold and kind of abrupt with him, so he knew something was going on, why she was so abrupt with him in that phone call. And so there were so many signs there. Again, the publicist and the manager were the closest to her on a day-to-day. In this documentary, her family, she could call them, but they couldn't call her. And this was according to what her niece said, who she loved dearly. She loved all her family. You could tell Wendy came from good stock. I say that. She comes from good stock. Her family was a cohesive family, educated people. Looks like they had a lot of great family times. Again, not perfect. No family's perfect. But from what we can see, again, going back to those pictures are very telling. Like I said, there were some really great pictures included, which whoever did the selection of those pictures, wonderful. Kudos to you, because it shows how Wendy started out. There was a picture that was shown when she was a little girl and her brother was in the middle and then her sister was to the right. That was a really cute picture of Wendy as a little girl. So I enjoyed seeing that. Again, pictures are history. So the addiction is something that many people struggle with. Sometimes addictions have a stronghold, a very strong hold to the point where it takes intervention. We all know, we may have had family members that have gone through many treatment programs, both inpatient and outpatient. But as soon as they're out of the program, they go back to whatever the substance is, be it alcohol, drugs, or whatever. It's a stronghold. It is hard to shake, and especially if there is a history of it in your family. It could be a close family member. It could be your parents. If your parents also had an addiction, and again, I'm not a substance abuse specialist, but again, I talk from personal experiences, and I talk from what I know professionally. But it is very difficult because it's a part of your DNA. Not saying that you cannot break the cycle of addiction, but it's very, very difficult. Again, this is all my opinion, allegedly fair use. I don't know if her parents or anyone like her uncles or aunts ever had any type of addictions. I don't know. Sometimes there is no history of it in your family, but it's because of your environment. It is because of your environment. I saw, again, going back to the pictures, a lot of the pictures captured Wendy as, in my opinion, again, love Wendy, but as a party girl. And again, a lot of it perhaps because of the industry that she was in. She was a radio personality. There are a lot of parties, she's interacting, mingling with, rappers, musicians, celebrities. They party. We all know that. We see that every day in social media and just in the world. We know that they party a lot. So, maybe her addiction came from, being a part of that scene, so to speak, being in the city, major cities, and if you didn't go to the parties, maybe you were considered not cool or not cool enough. So again, I don't know. And like I said, I'm not trying to diagnose her, but again, based on what I see, again, this is my opinion, based on my experiences. So that could be a part of it. That was the industry that she was in. So she got caught up. Sometimes we can dabble in things and it's just a once and done. It's like, I don't like that. I don't like beer. I don't like wine. I don't like, vodka or rum or whatever. You may smoke marijuana one time, say, oh, nah, that's not my thing. Some people, because of different reasons, they get addicted to it. And so it could be a DNA, could be environmental, and it could be the stressors of life. She was in a very toxic, again, this is my opinion, a toxic marriage. A husband who, by her own account, repeatedly cheated on her from the very beginning of her marriage. Even in the previous documentary, I think she said when she was pregnant with little Kev, Big Kev cheated on her, and that was shown in the previous documentary. So again, some people turn to substances, again, but she did state also, I want to clarify, that when she was pregnant with him and when she wanted to be a mother, she did not use drugs or alcohol. But again, the aftermath of that, over time, it's like anything. It's a pile-on. One indiscretion, okay, we can forgive that. Some people, everyone has a breaking point in a marriage, things that will and will not tolerate. Me personally, I would never tolerate drugs, because I've seen that up close and personal. Addiction. If someone has a substance abuse or alcohol, that's a non-negotiable. As soon as I find out, I'm out. That's just me, because of my personal experiences dealing with it for a very long time. So that's for me. Again, my opinion, my experiences. I would never deal with someone in a relationship and or marriage that has any type of substance abuse issue, because I've seen the damage, how it ravishes not just the person but the family. A lot of destruction. So again, because of her relationship, that may have been another way that she got caught into that scene of addiction. And again, so it's multi-layered. That's what I say, it's tricky when you're dealing with someone with addiction. Many times we don't know where it started, and we don't know how it progressed, and we don't know what the status is at any given time. We don't know what the status, because I'm going to tell you, people that are have addictions will lie a lot. Oh no, I'm not drinking anymore. Oh no, I'm not doing drugs anymore. They're at a family function, next thing you know, they're behind the house, they're out in the car, doing drugs or drinking. And vodka, and I will say vodka, and this is just from my personal experiences working in the corporate America, employees that I've had to deal with, again, my HR background, employees that have addictions. If they have addictions in their personal life, they have addictions in their professional life. Vodka does not smell, it does not have a color, it does not have an odor. So I have dealt with employees who have put vodka in water bottles. And there was one employee many years ago, a very sad situation. He was a functional alcoholic, but once we had to discipline him and ultimately terminate him because we had written him up, his performance was lacking. He had some odd behavior. Employees brought some things to our attention. We did an investigation. Once he left the company, we looked in his drawer. He had bottles, like so many water bottles, and we're like, no one can drink this much water at work. You would throw the bottles away, but you open up the top and it's alcohol, vodka. So like I said, that's from I experienced that professionally, and again, so it is real, and it's sad all at the same time, because good people get caught up in bad situations. We all know that. It happens to a lot of people. Good people get caught up in bad situations. And Wendy Williams is an icon. What she has done, no one else can duplicate. There's only one Wendy Williams. So for nothing else, she has laid the groundwork, the blueprint for those who have come behind her. So for that, we have to thank her for being courageous enough, brave enough, strong enough. So you can imagine, as a woman in that industry, that may be a part of this addiction, wanting to fit in, hanging with the boys, being on their level. Sometimes it depends on what environment you're in. You do things to fit in. You go along to get along, or whatever that saying is, you know what I'm trying to say. So, at the end of the day, I'm going to reiterate what I said in my last video. Again, make sure that you have important documents in place. And in my opinion, based on my experiences, I feel that Wendy's team failed her. Once she divorced, her attorneys or her legal team or whoever she has signing all these contracts, reviewing her contracts, I know she has probably a team of attorneys, because if you're in any industry like that, you have to have contracts for everything. They review it, make sure, with her salary negotiations, they had to review all those contracts to make sure she's being paid fairly, make sure that her contracts includes things that are in her best interest. In this respect, in terms of her estate planning, they failed her. Documents that should be in place for Wendy Williams right now should be a healthcare advocate, healthcare directive, a power of attorney, a living will, a trust, life insurance, updated beneficiaries on all her accounts, particularly the healthcare directive and healthcare power of attorney, or some people say advocate, interchangeable. This situation with this guardianship and her family not having contact would have been avoided, because it would have clearly documented who's in charge. When Wendy got to the point where she could no longer make medical decisions for herself because of her mental capabilities or lack thereof, there would be the advocate. Excuse me, I'm so sorry. The advocate could have quickly stepped in. Here are my legal papers. The situation with Wells Fargo. Again, my opinion, fair use, allegedly, and I do know this from personal experiences, the banks have federal regulations that they have to abide by. If there is a case or an allegation of financial exploitation, elder abuse, fraud, they have to do an investigation. If it is proven that there is any of those issues, fraud, exploitation, abuse, they have to take the appropriate action. A lot of people are, downing Wells Fargo. Yeah, they've had some issues, but they have a fiduciary responsibility to protect Wendy's interests because she's their customer. A lot of people are saying, everywhere, oh, well, the bank has no right to do all this. Yes, they do. It's just like a credit card. I've talked about this in other video. When you put your money in a bank or any financial institution, there are laws that they're regulated by. When you put a family member in a nursing home, there are laws that they're regulated. When you send your children to school, there are laws that regulate how they should be handled. When you go to a job, there are laws that protect you as an employee. So there are laws for everything. If you don't want the bank to be in your business, to tell you when to spend your money, to tell you how to spend your money, put it under your mattress, hide it in your home, put it in a safe deposit box. That's why a lot of older people, if you sit down and talk with them, they didn't trust banks. Because banks aren't perfect. They've done some shady stuff. But again, the point I'm making is that once you put your money in a financial institution, there are laws that they are abide by. There are rules that you have to follow. And I've talked about this in a previous video, so be very careful who you deal with. My opinion, just again, allegedly, banking 101, diversify. Any type of financial, investments. Don't put all your money in one bank, because things like this can happen. It did happen. So she's stuck. I would have had my money in different banks, credit unions, brokerage accounts. I would have had a financial advisor at each of those. I would have had several different advisors. I know that's a lot to deal with administratively, but that's the point of that, so that you're not stuck under the, auspices and the jurisdiction under one financial institution. If Wells Fargo had locked Wendy's account, she could have gone to, let's say, Schwab. She could have gone to Merrill Lynch. She could have, gone to, there's so many different credit unions out there. My apologies. So don't ever put all of your money, especially at that level. I mean, those of us that are regular smugglers, even I have different banking relationships. I know that just from my personal, professional experience. Don't ever put all your money in one bank. Because when the bank starts acting out or you don't agree with their policies, procedures, you get upset. You got to go through this whole process of taking all of your accounts out of this bank. It's a pain. So diversify. Have different banking relationships with different financial institutions. Mix it up. Don't ever put all your money in one bank. That's where Wendy, again, back to her team, her financial advisors messed her up. And again, this is my opinion, allegedly. She may still have the issue with Wells Fargo if she had one account over there, but she wouldn't have this situation where she has no access to any of her money. If all of her money's with Wells Fargo, they failed her. Never ever do that, especially at her level. So again, I'm blaming her team because she's paying them big bucks to protect her interests. So let me just reiterate some takeaways for me. Don't have all your money in one banking institution. Set up those important papers, especially the healthcare advocate, power of attorney, wills, estates, beneficiaries, especially if you have a major life change. If you get married, if you get divorced, if you have a spouse that passes away or parent, if you have the birth of a child, those are major life events. So your life changes. There are people either will depend on you more or depend on you less. So make sure you have those papers in place. Then addiction. Addiction is very tricky. In many cases, again, I'm talking personally, with people that have addictions, they have to want to change. You can talk. They can go to 50,000 treatment centers, inpatient, outpatient, Alcoholics Anonymous, all these other Knox Anonymous, all these other situations, organizations, which they were great organizations. I'm never going to knock those. Some people don't want to change, or they have to get to rock bottom to change. And I'm going to tell you, it's very difficult to stand by and watch the destruction of a family member that you love go through the devastation that addiction causes. So again, I watched the documentary. Again, Wendy, we love you. Everyone's praying for you. Thank you for being a trailblazer in your industry. We stand on your shoulders, we collectively, because you are an icon. What you have done, no other person has been able to duplicate. To her family, I know it's hard. I know it's a long road. I know it's an expensive road. But keep trying. Keep pressing forward. It's a cautionary tale for everyone. At your next family function, have these conversations about important documents. To Wendy's family, to the everyone in her immediate family, love the family pictures. Again, whoever selected those, awesome. It tells the history of a wonderful family that you have. I love pictures. They tell the story of our lives. They are our history. So Wendy comes from good stock. I can see that. And I watched her parents on the show when her mom was still alive. I know that was a difficult. I've gone through that, the loss of a parent. And sometimes some people recover from that. Sometimes people don't. And sometimes that leads to the destructive, behavior, or it exacerbates an already existing problem. So again, I can't give any diagnosis for Wendy Williams. I'm just giving my opinion from my personal and professional experiences. So I just wish everyone well. It was really hard to see this on our television screens, but again, my understanding is that it was a obligation, a contract that she had signed back in 2019. So that's been a while. So she was in a much better state at that time, or at least it appeared. I can say she appeared to us on the outside. Those close to her probably already knew there were some issues, but to us, the general public. So again, another takeaway for me: be happy with the life that I have. Being a superstar, being a celebrity, being an icon, sometimes it's not what it's cracked up to be. let's just go to our jobs. Let's just run our businesses. Let's just love on our families. Let's just, go to the little movie on the weekend, go out to dinner and, have family functions in the backyard and be happy with that. Just be happy with what we have, because what comes with the price of fame, many of us don't want that. We can't handle the price of fame, because there is a price that you pay to be famous. And one last point before I leave this video. I'm sorry it's long as it is, but I wanted to give my thoughts on it. Watching this documentary, it reminded me of the Michael Jackson story, the Whitney Houston story, the Prince story. There's just so many stories about how our stars, our icons, our legends, how we viewed them growing up, watching them grow, watching their career expand, enlargement of their territory, the rising stars, and then the final days. Very, very tragic. So again, be happy with your life. Don't covet your neighbor's life, because it may not be what it's cracked up to be. So I'm just going to go on and enjoy my little simple, comfortable life and be happy with that. So until the next time, take care.